Hi, welcome to this episode of History Headers. We are in Crescent City, California, where on March 28th, 1964, a huge tsunami swept in here as a result of the huge Alaskan earthquake, sent a tidal wave into the town, destroyed about 220 buildings. I think it killed less than 20 people, but it really traumatized this entire community.
This past summer, we took a trip to Crescent City, California, which is about 20 miles from the Oregon border. It is the only incorporated city in Del Norte County and also the county seat. It's named for the crescent-shaped stretch of beach south of the city. In 2020, Crescent City had a population of about 6,600 people, a decrease of about 1,000 since the 2010 census. I was hopeful that we'd be able to walk out to the Battery Point Lighthouse, but the tides had a different idea for us, covering up the only path to it. It was a no-go, and we couldn't wait the hours for the tide to go back out.
It's the reason we're not going to be able to go to the lighthouse today. High tide.
So we enjoyed what sights we could see.
So don't look now, but we spotted Bigfoot. He's up on the ridge.
To explain the biggest event of this city's history, look to the cataclysmic event that took place the day before, some 1,600 miles to the northwest. At 5:36 p.m. on Good Friday, March 27th, Alaska was rocked by one of the most violent earthquakes in recent history. With a magnitude of 9.2, the megathrust earthquake remains the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in North America. Hundreds of houses were broken like matchsticks. The earthquake that struck Anchorage, Alaska was devastating for many. It lasted 4 minutes and 38 seconds and destroyed homes, businesses, and roads. Some areas near Kodiak were permanently raised by 30 feet, and some businesses sank far below the streets that were in front of them. The upheaval of slipping plates on the floor of the Pacific Ocean sent a massive wave of water towards Oregon and California. Crescent City was one of the hardest hit by the tsunami 4 hours later. Although a tsunami warning had been issued that day, locals dismissed it because of the many past warnings that hadn't materialized.
So what we're looking at right here is an antique store. It was originally the Bay City Market. It actually survived the tsunami, and I've compared pictures, and it's the same building. But the parking lot was the scene of major cleanup operations. And off to the north there is the former site of the Oddfellows Hall that was pushed by the waves almost off its foundation. I'm here at the corner of 2nd and G Streets, and right here was the 2-story Oddfellows Hall. The wave hit it so hard that it displaced it from its supporting rock pillars. There were a number of them, basically swung around a 45-degree angle from its foundation, and has since been removed and replaced by this apartment complex right here. Now, about a quarter of the town residents live in poverty, I understand, so it's not a high-income community.
The water swept into the low-lying areas of town, killing 12 persons, injuring 24, and destroying about 289 buildings in a 30-block area up to 9th Street, causing millions in damages. An estimated 150 businesses were destroyed. At least 4 tidal waves struck, with the last one being the largest. It came after the water was sucked out of the inner harbor. Then a wall 21 feet tall came in, crashing 15 fishing boats.
So as you can tell by the mural that's on this wall, this town was pretty traumatized by what happened March 28th, 1964. The building has a mural on it that depicts the tidal wave or tsunami that swept through this part of town. We would be standing underwater if we were here at that time. Some of the scenes on this mural were modeled after photos taken of the damage. Now I'm singling out this church here on, I believe it's E Street, because it's one of the buildings that withstood the tidal wave. So it actually survived the tidal wave.
Cleanup efforts alone would cost $300,000, and the fishing fleet that dominates the town's coastline accrued $260,000 in damage. During the aftermath, it was all hands on deck as the entire town, including 55 local prisoners, chipped in to clean up the ruins of their once beautiful coastal town. Sandy Nuss recalled that cars were strewn everywhere. There were motels and houses in the middle of the street. The water rushed through the appliance store, and when it receded, there were washers and dryers and refrigerators all over the place. It was a real mess. Most of the damage was right here in the waterfront business district when lumber and cars and houses battered against one another, knocking homes and businesses and churches off their foundation.
This is a low spot in Crescent City, and the water would have swept up right here. This huge wave would have swept up right into this part of town right here on Front Street. Now you had to go as far as 9th Street up there to actually ditch the waves. There's a certain safety zone. So I wanted to show you the turf club. Now this building came after the tsunami wiped out the original turf club that was here, but it displaced the building into about halfway into that sidewalk. And just to let you know, this is the same fire hydrant that's visible in the picture that I have of it, only it was painted red. One of the few relics today from the tsunami. So I'm assuming this building was actually constructed in the 60s after the tsunami wiped out the original building that was here. Imagine your town getting wiped out with the waves 7 to 21 feet high sweeping up the main street of your town.
Case's Sports Shop, seen here before the tsunami struck, was pushed off its foundation to a 45-degree angle. Also sustaining damage was the new Safeway store, bounded by 3rd and 4th Streets in between K and L Streets. Seawater washing into Daly's department store caused a horrific mess to clothing and other merchandise. Roy's Marina remained unmoved, unlike the other buildings that washed into the street out in front of it. Traherne's at 982 2nd Street was structurally damaged, with items like U-Hauls resembling misplaced toys coming to rest in front. The dark-colored house seen here between the Adelaide and Miller's Fountain News was destroyed, as were cars swept off of H Street. Motels that were serving visitors on Highway 101 or Front Street near the waterfront were devastated. They included the Breakers and the Royal Motel on L Street, now the Front Street Inn. To make matters worse, a gasoline tanker was pushed against electrical lines and a fire ensued. It spread to a Texaco tank farm which burned for 3 days. Imagine your town getting slammed by waves measuring 7 to 21 feet high. Today there are a lot of empty lots remaining where the waves swept across and where people are afraid to build once again. To mitigate any future tsunamis, the city installed a breakwater in 1957.
So 64, I think the waves would have been 8.5 feet deep according to the sign. So it had been over my head. And this details how they invented these concrete blocks called tetrapods.
These giant jacks are used to protect harbors from damaging current. As waves hit the tetrapods, the force of the water is dissipated by the curve of the legs. There are 1,630 tetrapods on the ocean side of the Crescent City Breakwater. There are 1,900 tetrapods and 768 steel-reinforced dolos on the newer leg of the jetty. This 25-ton tetrapod that's on display near Front Street was moved nearly 3 feet off its pedestal by the force of the March 28, 1964 tsunami.
These things are massive. They look like giant jacks made out of concrete, but it's got to be at least 15 feet high. I don't think this one's functioning. It's just here to show you what was in place back in the time.
Crescent City has been hit with other natural disasters besides tidal waves. On February 23, 1925, a waterspout, which is essentially a tornado that draws up water and can unload over land, was observed in the harbor. It didn't take long for the churning vertical funnel to burst into the heart of the city as a cyclone, ripping up roof shingles and tearing the top story off the theater. The wind even picked up a pedestrian and dropped him into the street unharmed. The destructive wind and water of the cyclone damaged the Oddfellows Hall, the same one that would be pushed by the tsunami 39 years later. The 1925 waterspout caused significant damage to the Hobson Wall building and its commercial neighbors. The historic Marhofer home sustained water damage, but its owners were able to restore it. It remained standing until 1962 when it was leveled to make way for the Ben Franklin store, which had just opened prior to being ruined by the tidal wave of 1964. On March 11, 2011, the city was once again hit by a tsunami when Japan experienced a massive earthquake. The harbor sustained extensive damage and destruction from tsunamis. More recently, in 2019, a cyclone bomb hit town, ripping up the roof of the hardware store. Fortunately, mankind has the resilience and ability to carry on, rebuild, and heal from the emotional scars of disaster. Sarah and I finished out our visit to Crescent City with a walk down the B Street Pier to take in sights, but I couldn't help but think back to the time when this city was a disaster zone.